Do you think it was a good thing for you to switch careers?
All right, it was, I can call it like, it was the golden opportunity to switch the career, because not because I could not secure the job, but I didn't really know, because I never did any internships in terms of getting to be, or I never really got to learn what it took to be an analytical chemist and what it meant to work in a lab. Because I remember working in one of the pharmaceuticals, I think I was lucky to get one, but I never really...
That job?
I never stayed there more than a day, because the experience of working in a small, tiny room with a machine is something that was never in my mind. As much as I knew I was going to work with machines, but I never really thought that it could be maybe one person and working with all these samples.
Okay.
The whole time.
So I kindly ask one favor to support me by hitting that subscribe button. It truly means the world to me. So now you are a teacher. You've gotten into the teaching profession.
Yeah.
And right now you are a teacher in the United States.
Yeah.
How did you learn about these opportunities in the United States?
All right. So one of the things that happened to me when I started being a teacher was like I got to learn that teachers have to be constantly learning. And you have to constantly update your knowledge and your experiences to better serve your students. So during that time, because I started off in a school that was an international school. Let me not say international school, but it had majority of my colleagues had come from various parts of the world, and I got to get interested in getting the exposure. And getting to interact with various cultures and different diversities. So at the time, I used to hear that some teachers could go teaching in the United States. So I asked a relative about whether he had heard of that process and maybe what it entails. So my uncle, actually, who is the one who got for me the information, linked me to a friend who had taught in the United States through a similar program. And he had been here, I think, for more than 20 years. So he told me that at the time he was coming, he was brought on a work visa. And he has now fully settled in the United States, and he's working here, and he's still in the education system. So he told me I needed to start the process. So I was curious. I told him, okay, tell me what it takes.
So that is how it was. Like, you were curious, and like you did not see the information maybe in a poster or somebody advertising for the position. You were curious about it and you asked, and you got the information.
And then I got the information. And then at the same time, now because there was that idea that has been mentioned that there is a possibility that teachers could actually go teaching in the United States, I started digging up the internet, because the internet has got all these resources.
Yeah, okay.
So I went to YouTube, I started checking, and then at the same time I was actually interviewing I'd applied to teach in Australia. And I remember I started the process with them, and I was doing all these meetings and trainings for certification. But their process was really lengthy. And I had obtained that link just from my network. Someone had shared with me and said, oh, they are looking for some teachers in Australia. If you're interested, you can apply. So I applied. But I didn't know of anyone who had gone to Australia as a teacher.
Okay.
But I know they take teachers right now, and maybe some other countries as the same. So I was having the United States on one side and Australia on the other side. All I knew is I needed to move out and teach in another country to see how different it is. Because at the time, I was teaching in a school where we could get students also from these other parts. I remember there is a student who told me he was from Australia.
In your school?
In my school.
Okay.
And that was like my very last station before I moved here. So they told me I was from Australia, and he told me all these nice things about how their classrooms were all set up and everything. So I was curious. So besides teaching in an international school back home, I was like, okay, let me go and see. Maybe there is some differences.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I felt the need to move, because I wanted to explore and get to experience different cultures.
Oh, good. Yeah. So you've learned about now these opportunities. They're there in Australia, in the United States. Now let's go to what everybody asks.
The process.
What does it take me to be there? Dennis, please tell me. I want to know how to come to the United States as a teacher. Now it's today. Tell us how to come to the United States.
All right. So the two processes that you could take to be a teacher in the United States. One of them is through an exchange program, where you are given what we call a J1 visa, which is an exchange visa, so that you can come and experience and teach different places, and then you can go back. You can go back home after a period of like maybe 5 years, so that you can go and more of like impart the skills that you learned here. So I got to know of another one called the H1B visa. Now they call it, by the United States, it's normally classified as the specialty worker visa, which is H1B is more of like a dual intent. A dual intent in the sense that you can come and teach after the period is over. They can possibly extend it and even give you a permanent residence, but it's normally not assured, like you will
not guaranteed.
Not guaranteed, but it's a dual intent, so they don't have the mandatory return, like you should go back home after the period is over. So those are the two programs. Now each of them has got different needs that you have to meet before you can come here. The one that both of them share is that you must be able to evaluate your academic credentials. You have to be able to convert them from the Kenyan certificate, or let's say your degree has to be given an equivalence to what you will have in the United States.
Okay.
So
that is your undergraduate degree?
Your undergraduate degree or your postgraduate, because for me now at the time I had undergraduate and then I had the postgraduate for education.
Okay.
So they had to do an evaluation for both of them. So for both processes, for J1 and H1, you have to evaluate your academic credentials. So you must be able to have at least a 3.0 or 3.0 GPA and above to at least be able to be eligible. So once you have that evaluation done, now you move into the next step. If you are applying for the exchange visa, then you go straight into applying for the jobs. So you start. There are agencies that support the exchange program visa. There are a number of them. And possibly maybe you will be able to share the link for those who will be interested at some point, that they can be able to review that. So there are so many of them right now. And there are two versions of them. There is those that charge a fee. There are those that are free.
Okay. So wait a little bit. We've got two ways. We've got the J1
and the H1B.
And the H1B. So both of them will share like the same evaluation, like you have to do.
Yeah.
So now the difference comes in. For the J1, you'll need to work with an agent.
You need to work with an agent who most of the time they refer to as sponsor.
A sponsor, okay.
So the sponsor may not really sponsor your program, your application process, but they are the ones who will process your immigration documents. They call it the service. I think there is a form that they're normally given, all that. So I will not really go much in the details of the J1 because I didn't use it.
You did not. And you talked about for J1 you do application.
Yes, you do application, which is most of the time you apply to those agencies. They have various links. It's more of like the normal job application process that you do. It's just that it's a bit lengthy, so you have to be patient.
Okay.
And you have to provide what they need, and most of the time they will need you to also upload reference and what we call verification of experiences from your previous workstations and everything. You also need to have a minimum of 2 years teaching experience. you will also be required to at least have a passport, because now if you have to move out of the country, that is one of the first
Basic
requirements.
Yeah.